Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer on modern distributed systems. A lot of folks assume that scaling a system just means throwing more servers at the problem. But if you're just adding servers without optimizing the underlying architecture, you're really just building a wider highway that leads right into a massive traffic jam. So let's dive into how this actually works.
So, how do modern systems actually scale? Spoiler alert, it is not about brute force. True scale is a really delicate dance that requires ruthless optimization at every single tier of a request's journey. We're talking from the moment a data request is born to how it travels, how it gets routed over the network, and finally, how it's aggressively managed once it reaches its destination.
Today, we're mapping out this journey across 5 key areas. We'll start with the pillars of system scale, then look at choosing your communication protocol, dive into Layer 4 load balancing, talk about surviving massive API traffic, and finally, we'll cover handling limits gracefully.
All right, starting with our first point, the pillars of system scale. To truly optimize a system, we really have to treat it like a massive high-speed highway, carefully managing everything from the vehicles to the interchanges all the way down to the toll booths.
Next up, let's talk about choosing your communication protocol.
In our highway analogy, communication protocols are basically the vehicles carrying your data. To understand this foundational layer, we're drawing on some fascinating benchmarking from a KTH Royal Institute thesis. First, we have traditional REST over HTTP. Think of this as a highly reliable, comfortable sedan. It carries human-readable JSON payloads, which is fantastic for developers, right? We can easily read the text. But because REST applications have to constantly convert binary data into text, send it over HTTP1, and then parse it back into binary on the other side, well, it's just a lot less efficient when you're trying to optimize for pure speed.
But then we have the alternative, gRPC. If REST is our reliable sedan, gRPC is literally a modern bullet train. It utilizes protocol buffers, which is a binary payload, running on HTTP/2 rails. And what that does is allow multiple requests to be multiplexed over a single connection. It lets a client's application seamlessly invoke a method on a remote server as if it were a local object sitting right there on your own machine.
So how do they actually stack up against each other? Well, the KTH benchmark data is crystal clear here. gRPC vastly outperforms REST in latency, throughput, and scalability. Because it uses that binary payload and HTTP2 multiplexing, gRPC completely avoids the heavy overhead of converting and parsing textual JSON data. The thesis actually found this performance advantage is incredibly pronounced for smaller messages. When you're dealing with massive scale, those milliseconds you save on every single microservice hop, they compound massively.
Which brings us to our third stop, Layer 4 load balancing.
Because look, even the fastest gRPC bullet train is inevitably going to bottleneck if your highway interchanges are poorly optimized. We need a way to route millions of these fast requests without slowing them down to inspect them. And that brings us to the OSI model's transport layer, or Layer 4. This is the exact domain where hyper-fast traffic hops, like the AWS Network Load Balancer, operate. Instead of looking deep into the payload, a Layer 4 load balancer makes its routing decisions based purely on what's known as the 5-tuple. That's the source and destination IP addresses, the source and destination ports, and the protocol type like TCP or UDP. When you sort traffic like this, the results are incredible. Because an AWS Network Load Balancer only looks at that 5-tuple, its performance metrics are just staggering. We're talking millions of connections per second with single-digit millisecond latency. It's totally protocol agnostic, and in its pass-through mode, it perfectly preserves the original client IP. It is just pure, raw routing power. To really put this into perspective, let's quickly contrast Layer 4 with Layer 7 load balancing. Layer 7 is kind of the nosy one. It deeply inspects the payload to look at HTTP headers, URLs, and cookies. That's great for complex web routing for sure, but it is inherently slower. By skipping application payload inspection entirely, Layer 4 yields raw, protocol-agnostic performance. It doesn't care what's inside the box. It just moves the box to its destination as fast as physically possible.
Okay, let's move on to part 4, surviving massive API traffic. So we've optimized our protocol and our routing, but now we hit the application boundary. What happens when a massive flash sale or even abusive bot traffic slams into those fast highway interchanges and threatens to overwhelm your servers? Enter the dreaded 429 too many requests HTTP status code. While it might be super frustrating to receive as a developer, the 429 is actually the system's ultimate defense mechanism. Think of it as the metering light on a highway on-ramp. It intentionally halts incoming traffic to maximize overall API stability and prevent the backend databases from just completely buckling under the load. Let's ground this with a real-world example from an industry giant like Stripe, pulling directly from their official API docs. Their limits are strictly defined. For their global live mode, it's 100 requests per second. But check out their sandbox mode, which is used for testing. That limit is drastically lowered to just 25 requests per second. Stripe does this to ensure their production systems remain pristine, and it's a great reminder for developers that limits are meant to be treated as absolute maximums, not targets. Now here's a question for you to chew on. What is the actual difference between a rate limit and a concurrency limit? They sound similar, right? Standard rate limits measure requests per second, basically how many cars are passing the toll booth right now. But a concurrency limit restricts the number of simultaneously active, resource-intensive requests. It counts how many cars are currently parked on the highway, taking up space. So if you're running long, heavy queries, you're going to hit a concurrency limit long before you hit a standard rate limit. You also need to watch out for a sneaky, specific type of 1490 error, the lock_timeout. Even if you haven't hit your rate limit, if multiple simultaneous operations clash over the exact same object, the API will actually lock it to prevent data corruption. When another request tries to access it and times out waiting, boom, it throws a 429. To prevent this, operations on the same object have to be sequentially queued, not fired off concurrently.
Finally, let's wrap up with part 5, handling limits gracefully. So we know these digital toll booths and speed limits exist. How do we equip our clients to handle these strict traffic boundaries without our application crashing? Stripe's engineering practices give us a great primary mitigation strategy. First, actively watch for those 429 status codes. Second, implement a retry mechanism. But third, and this is absolutely crucial, you must use an exponential backoff schedule with added randomness. Think about it. If 1,000 rate-limited clients all just wait exactly 1 second and retry at the exact same moment, you create what's called a thundering herd effect, knocking the API right back down. Adding randomness spreads that load out safely.
If you want to take a more advanced approach, you don't even have to wait to be rejected by the server. Instead, use a token bucket algorithm to control and throttle API usage globally, right on the client side. Just imagine a bucket filled with tokens. Every single request costs a token, and the bucket refills at a steady, predictable rate. If the bucket is empty, the client simply pauses. This proactively throttles traffic before it ever even hits the API, which saves bandwidth and prevents errors from happening in the first place.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty important question for you to think about. Is your infrastructure actually built to survive success? We've explored the KTH benchmark, proving gRPC's incredible binary speed, the microsecond routing power of Layer 4 load balancers, and the absolute defensive necessity of rate limits and exponential backoff. When your flash sale hits or your app goes totally viral, it is this exact combination of protocols, interchanges, and limits that will dictate if your system scales or shatters. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep optimizing.